Good morning, everybody. Argentina has just elected a new president because they've had their elections. And they've elected someone who is a pro-freedom libertarian, which on the surface of things is good news. He's had a lot of coverage in social media over the last few months, if not mainstream media in the West. But it's good to look in to what he actually stands for, because on the surface there's a lot of good things, but underneath there are some things that we need to consider because they're not so good if they come and they play out. Same as Giorgia Meloni, who was elected president of Italy earlier this year. Very, very good on the surface, very, very strongly anti-woke, pro-family, but she said she was against mass immigration, but she's continued to allow it to happen, and now there's more mass immigration into Italy than they had before she became president. There was a warning sign with her, which I knew about, but I didn't talk about, and that's my fault. I've admitted that. She was a member of something called the Aspen Institute, which is like a smaller, but just as powerful version of the World Economic Forum, but it's just not so seen. It's where, these people go to plan the New World Order and so on. She's a member of that, so she is very, very good on the things that now it's safe to talk about. But she is certainly, as a member of the Aspen Institute, I assume that she is in favor of their programs. Let's go back to Argentina and talk about this new president. Is certainly eccentric, certainly extrovert, certainly a huge character, and has been on television stations, ubiquitously in Argentina for many, many years. So he's got the airtime, he's got the coverage. They love him, they have him on all the time because he gets ratings. People want to see him because he throws his arms around in the air and he says things which no one else is willing to say. I mean, he calls people that I call politically correct and cultural Marxists or so on, he just goes on and says they're leftards and insults them with four-letter words, which, of course, gets ratings. I don't know if you'd be allowed to do that here in the UK because there are certain codes you're not allowed to swear. But in Argentinian television, it's a different culture, so he can go and say these kind of things. Yeah, I really do like that, to be honest. He's really having a go at the cultural Marxists, the leftists who are, they use tactics to destroy anybody who disagrees with their programs. Now, Argentina doesn't have a problem with mass immigration, but it does have a problem with economic socialism. And there was a very famous clip of him going around and saying, this department, I'm going to scrap it. This department, I'm going to scrap it. The Ministry for Culture, scrap it. The Ministry for Education, scrap it, and so on. So, in a sense, that's a good thing. He wants a small state where the state does not have all of these departments interfering with people's lives all over the place every day, just a state that does the basic jobs that it needs to do to keep the country running, and then hands autonomy back to the people, which in almost all countries around the world has been taken away progressively by the state because they want to make you serfs, essentially, with no power and no agency, no autonomy, no liberty of your own. So that is a very good thing. A small state, a free economy, free trade. He's against central banks and central bank digital currency. Ironically, however, he wants to ditch the Argentinian peso, their own currency, and use the US dollar. So that doesn't actually make sense. He wants to get rid of the Argentinian central bank, start using the dollar or maybe Bitcoin. But if he uses the dollar and adopts that as Argentina's currency, like Ecuador has done already and like Panama has done already, you have absolutely no say whatsoever in the policy concerning the dollar. If that's your currency, then your central bank becomes the Federal Reserve in the United States. So, he's just ditching one central bank for another central bank, and that doesn't make sense. So, that's just maybe the first thing, you need to note about this, because there's an inconsistency there. But he's very, very good on being anti-woke. He's anti-globalist, so he says. But, there is that, massive hole in their argument there. He's anti all the climate agenda. That's a good thing. The whole net zero stuff is absolute rubbish, and he's not going to have that transformation, as they say, from carbon-based fuels, which work and give you energy like oil and coal and gas, to methods of energy production that don't produce hardly anything, wind and solar. Well, actually in Argentina, in some places in the south, wind is viable. I mean, it's one of the few places in the world where wind energy actually is viable, down in Patagonia, because they have consistent wind levels which are at the right speed to give you good energy generation from a wind turbine consistently. The wind blows, it's not too slow, and it's not too fast to damage the wind turbine. So it can actually work a little bit there. But, it's not going to provide all the energy for the big cities like Buenos Aires and so on. So, that's good. He's pro-life as well. Considers the life of a human being to be sacrosanct. He's against euthanasia. So, looking after life at the beginning and the end, against people taking life, and that's good. But, when he says he's very pro-freedom, and that's also good, against lockdowns, I guess against coerced injections. But he's also, goes right into Rothbardian libertarianism, saying that if you want to sell your organs, you should be able to do so on the free market. Now, most countries have a prohibition on people selling their organs because, that's a safeguard against people kidnapping you and taking your organs and selling them. Is trying to completely curtail any kind of market in human organs. Well, in the West, that's, on the surface, that's what people say. Under the surface, I know people are, raising concerns about what goes on with, various things. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but I mean, he's actually then, he said he's against the globalist agenda, but then he wants a free market in human organs. He's against abortion, but what would happen then if someone, from another country came with tissues from some of these abortion clinics? Would they be allowed to be sold openly on the market in Argentina? I don't know. Again, there's an inconsistency there. So although he's an incredible character, he's been pushed by the media, people have bought into him, there are definitely things of concern and inconsistencies in what he's saying in his program. He's also very, very pro-Ukraine. Now, that is a big warning sign, because, this just taken on the globalist agenda. This is the globalist agenda to actually use Ukraine as a wedge to destroy Russia. That's, ultimately what this war is about in terms of Western involvement in Ukraine. There's, reports suggesting that this could be something that would be used to destabilize Russia and split it into 20 different regions or so on. Now, that plan isn't going well, and the Ukraine war is winding down, because it's just been a disaster for the Ukrainian people, and also for the Western puppets and puppet masters who wanted this, and it hasn't gone according to their plan. So people now, public opinion is very, very much turning against further involvement in Ukraine and sending any more money and weapons to the corrupt Zelensky regime. I've been saying that from the beginning. But here we have someone who's just been elected as president of Argentina and is very, very pro-Ukraine, and the agenda to supply it with weapons and money to continue the fight with Russia. That's a very concerning thing below the surface. He's also very pro-Israel. My position on this is just, not our conflict. You know, I'm not pro-Israel, I'm not pro-Palestine. I just want an end to the suffering on both sides of this. Which is why I've called for a ceasefire in the Middle East to stop children being killed, which is what's happening at the moment. He's very pro-Israel. The reason here is probably something that is obscured from most people, but because, you know, obviously in Argentina, the Falkland Islands are a huge issue for them. And it's always, you know, it's right there in your face. Even if someone is not talking about it, it's just there as an issue in politics. He likes Israel because Israel supplied Argentina with weapons to fight the United Kingdom back in the Falklands War in the 1980s. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, most Argentine presidents are very pro-Israel and support them. If they're, you know, so I don't know what he's going to do with the Falklands. Hopefully there won't be any more conflict there, because we don't want any more war and bloodshed in that anywhere. That would just be horrendous. But so that is, you know, he's saying he's anti-globalist, but then he's sort of, you know, not really anti-globalist, if you like. So he would, you know, 100% support Israel in what they're doing, I imagine, in the Middle East. So good things, but also warning signs as well with this new president of Argentina, Javier Milei. I'm sure he's going to get a lot more coverage over the next few weeks as people look into him, discover him, and put him on television and probably even in the mainstream media, because he's going to be painted as the Trump of Argentina. Is he? Well, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Is he someone who is going to be good for the right wing, for, you know, for libertarianism, for social conservatism, however you identify him? That, you know, those things, maybe to some extent on the surface, yes, but underneath there are these issues which we have to look at, because, you know, the real action sometimes in what's going on in international affairs happens under the surface. You're painted, you're given someone exciting to look at, but then under the surface things are happening which are not for the benefit of ordinary people. So watch this space and we'll see, but he's going to get a lot of coverage, and it's going to be very interesting to see what actually happens when he takes up the role of president of that country in Argentina. Thanks for listening, everyone. God bless you all.